Harper Audio presents The Jeopardy Challenge by Alex Trebek and Merv Griffin. Read by Alex Trebek. Hello, this is Alex Trebek. You're about to play some of the most challenging games of Jeopardy ever devised. Jeopardy, as you know, is the most popular television quiz show in history. Why? Because of people like you, who watch the show and compete against our contestants. Well, now's your chance to have the game boards all to yourself. In just a moment, we'll begin with a game from our Tournament of Champions. But first, let me explain how it will work. I'll tell you the categories in each game and the dollar amounts that go with each clue. Since you won't have a game board to look at, you'll have to concentrate even more carefully than usual. But I'll give you plenty of time to think of your response. If you have a paper and pen, you can keep track of your winnings just like we do on the show. Or you may want to simply keep a tally of your raw score of correct responses. Remember, the idea is simply to have fun. And remember also to frame your responses in the form of a question. I happen to be psychically attuned to incorrect responses, so be careful, and do enjoy the games. Let's begin with a great game from our 1989 Tournament of Champions. This was an exciting semifinal game, and the winner won more than $15,000. See if you can beat that. In a complete game, Jeopardy, Double Jeopardy, and Final Jeopardy, there are 61 clues and responses. If you get half of them right, you have done very well indeed. A raw score of 40 or more correct responses is excellent. And if you are right on 50 or more, you'll be in the very select company of Jeopardy champions. So concentrate, and good luck. I'll choose the categories and the dollar amounts randomly from the first game board. Here are the categories: journalism, city nicknames, physical science, U.S. history, singers, and 12-letter words. Remember to give your response in the form of a question. Your first category is U.S. history for $100. The answer is century in which the most states, 29, were admitted to the Union. Think a moment. The question is, what is the 19th century? I know you got that one right. Let's stick with the category of U.S. history. Now for $200. The answer is, John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay were among those who negotiated the Treaty of Ghent that ended this war. For $200, the correct response is, what was the War of 1812? How about one more from U.S. history? For $300, the answer is, the first English settlement in Maine occurred in this same year as the settlement of Jamestown. Did you get the year? The correct question is, what is 1607? Yes, I'm sure you remember that the difficulty increases along with the dollar amounts. Perhaps U.S. history is not your strong suit. Let's switch to the category of journalism. For $100, the answer is, the public may subscribe to this paper, which features a daily transcript of the activities of Congress. The correct response? What is the congressional record? One more from the journalism category. For $200, the answer is, this CBS newsman once petitioned Churchill to let him broadcast outdoors so people could hear the Blitz. The question, of course, is, who is Edward R. Murrow? Are you remembering to phrase your response in the form of a question? If you're listening alone, of course, you'll be on the honor system, but I should warn you that I have become psychically attuned to answers that aren't in the form of a question. I will assume that a word to the wise is sufficient. Now let's continue with a clue from the category City Nicknames. For $100, the answer is the Big Apple. And the question is, what is New York City? Easy, right? But try this one. For $200, the answer is the cradle of Texas liberty. Be careful. The correct question is, what is San Antonio? How are you doing so far? I know you don't have a game board to look at, so you'll have to concentrate. Let's move from category to category while you continue to warm up. Here's one from the category Physical Science. For $100, every year Australia moves 2 inches away from this nearest U.S. state, and Japan moves 3 inches closer. The correct question? What is Hawaii? Now let's move to singers for $100. When he got his star on Hollywood's Walk of Fame, this Welshman tossed garters to his fans. And he's still tossing them. The correct response is, who is Tom Jones? Here's our first clue from the category of 12-letter words. From the Greek for fire and craft, it's a fancy word for a fireworks display. The question is, what is pyrotechnics? Let's go back to journalism now. For $300, Syme Silverman, editor of this weekly trade paper, coined the headline, Sticks Nicks, Hick Picks. It's the show business paper Variety, so the correct response is, what is Variety? Now for another city nickname. For $300, here's the clue. The Crescent City. It's New Orleans. What is New Orleans? Let's try 2 answers in a row from the category of physical science. First, for $200, the answer is, France derives a higher percentage of its electricity from this energy source than any other country. The correct response? What is nuclear energy? Now physical science for $300. Carbohydrates such as sugars and starch contain these 3 elements. What are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen? The elemental big 3. Now let's try a clue from the category of singers. For $200, the answer is, Katie Segal of Married with Children used to be one of the Harlettes who sang backup for this star. The Harlettes were backup singers for the Divine Miss M. So the correct response is, who is Bette Midler? Now let's move to the 12-letter words category. Here's the clue. Stereophonic times 2. 2 times stereophonic is quadraphonic. What is quadraphonic? Here's another 12-letter word clue. In other words, this exclamation can be violin bows. What is fiddlesticks? Oh, where have all the good expressions gone? Fiddlesticks. Well, let's see if you know who this singer is. For $300, he played a sleazy evangelist in the James Bond film License to Kill. He's a Las Vegas favorite. Who is Wayne Newton? I have purposely avoided the clues with higher dollar values while you warmed up, but now it's time to move on to the more difficult $400 and $500 entries. First, for $400 in the journalism category. Born in Hungary, he ran the St. Louis Post-Dispatch before buying the New York World. The correct response? Who is Joseph Pulitzer? Here's a city nickname clue for $400. Kodak City. I'll repeat that one. Kodak City. Kodak City is Rochester, New York. So the correct question is, what is Rochester, New York? Try this next 12-letter word for $500. Here's the clue. Literary term for words like hiss, fizz, kerflop, kerplunk, and kerflooey. I've always had trouble with this one. It's onomatopoeia. What is onomatopoeia? Now you try it. Hey, that's very good. All right, here's a physical science clue for $500. A space telescope launched by the Space Shuttle in 1991 is named for this 20th century astronomer. Remember, the launch was delayed and the telescope had a lot of problems. The correct response is, who is Edwin Hubble? Now let's try U.S. history for $400. This disease, transmitted by the Aedes aegypti mosquito, was brought to America on slave ships. The question is, what is yellow fever? Now here's a singer you should know. For $500, this Aussie singer was once a commissioner of parks and recreation for the state of California. Who is Helen Reddy? I am strong, I am woman. Now back to physical science. Completing that category, for $400, the answer is minus 273.15 degrees centigrade. You're absolutely right. The correct response is, what is absolute zero? Let's complete the journalism category. For $500, United Press International, UPI journalist, who's the senior member of the White House Press Corps. Who is Helen Thomas? Completing the singers category for $400, the answer is Emmy-winning TV hostess, whose hometown, Winchester, Tennessee, renamed its main street in her honor. It's Dinah Shore. Who is Dinah Shore? Now here's the final clue in the category of city nicknames. For $500, the Athens of the South. You may know that Nashville, Tennessee has a life-size replica of the Parthenon in its Central City Park. And so the correct response is, what is Nashville? Completing the 12-letter word category for $400, kids could tell the post office the dinosaur called this on a stamp is actually an Apatosaurus. Youngsters always seem to learn the names of these beasts before their parents do. The Apatosaurus was formerly called a Brontosaurus, and so the correct question, what is a Brontosaurus? Here's the final clue in the category of U.S. history, and the final clue in this round of Jeopardy. For $500, in 1954, he was elected to the Senate from South Carolina by a write-in vote. The correct response, who is Strom Thurmond? How did you do in this first round? Pretty well, I bet. Well, no matter how well you did, I'm sure you're warmed up by now. One significant difference between the tapes you're listening to and our television program is that here there are no interruptions for commercials, so we can go right on to the Double Jeopardy round. And let's do that now. These are the categories in our first round of Double Jeopardy. Abbreviations, Scotland, ballet, medicines, poetry, and famous educators. Remember now, the dollar amounts in this round are doubled. I'll give you the clues in the same order as they were chosen by our Tournament of Champions contestants. The first Double Jeopardy category chosen in this round was poetry. For $200, here's the clue. 5-line humorous verse named for an Irish county. I'm sure you know many of them. What is a limerick? The contestant who answered correctly then chose the category abbreviations for $200. Abbreviated with the letters HDBK, a Boy Scout might consult one. Again, the letters are HDBK. The correct response, what is a handbook? The contestants then moved to the category Scotland for this clue. For $200. This term for the extended family comes from the Gaelic for children. What is clan? We then moved back to abbreviations, and one contestant completed the category with 4 straight correct responses. For $400, artistic field in which you'd find abbreviations such as SFZ, PP, and FF. I'll repeat them since you don't have a game board to look at. SFZ, PP, and FF. The correct response is music. What is music? Next, for $600, the clue is the abbreviation for manager is MGR, whereas MSGR stands for this. That's MSGR. What is Monsignor? We would also accept the word messenger. For $800, the answer is, if you reverse this month's 3-letter abbreviation, you get the symbol of one of its astrological signs. RAM, R-A-M, spelled backwards, is the abbreviation for March. And so the correct question is, what is March? And for $1,000, completing the category, the clue is, of the 4 main compass points, these 3 are also symbols of elements. The correct response this time, what are N, W, and S? N for nitrogen, W for tungsten, and S for sulfur. The contestant who was on a roll with abbreviations then moved to the category medicines, but another contestant beat him to the buzzer for the correct response to the first clue. Here it is. For $200, Dramamine, or Phenergan, taken about a half hour before traveling, will help prevent this. What is motion sickness? We then move to the poetry category for $400. The clue is, his poem, Mending Wall, first appeared in North of Boston, a collection of poems he wrote in England. The correct response? Who is Robert Frost? We then jump to our first clue in the category of famous educators. For $200, the answer is, in 1978, this future baseball commissioner became the youngest president of Yale in 2 centuries. We were all saddened by his untimely death. The correct response is, who is A. Bartlett Giamatti? The contestant who first chose poetry now moved back to that category and completed it with 3 straight correct responses. For $600, the answer is, not only did he write Don Juan, he proved it was possible to swim the Hellespont by doing it himself. The question, who was Lord Byron? Poetry for $800. He wrote, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. Who is Alfred Lord Tennyson? And for $1,000, completing the category, in The Bait, spelled B-A-I-T-E, he wrote, come live with me and be my love. The correct response is, who was John Donne? The same contestant then jumped back to the famous educators category for 3 more correct responses. Famous educators for $400. The answer is, in 1925, this Dayton, Tennessee biology teacher was arrested for teaching evolution in his class. He was defended by Clarence Darrow. The correct response is, who was John T. Scopes? In the same category for $600, the answer is, both John R. Gregg and Sir Isaac Pitman are famous for developing and teaching systems of this. What is shorthand? We would also have accepted stenography. What is stenography? And famous educators for $800. The clue, which our contestants missed, is this Swiss child psychologist was a professor at the University of Geneva from 1929 until his death in 1980. He was a revolutionary educator who was Jean Piaget. Another contestant then moved the game to the category Scotland and correctly solved the 4 remaining clues. Scotland for $400. The Scots word for twilight. Sir Harry Lauder used to sing about Roman in it. Roman in the... What is the gloamin'? Roman in the gloamin'. Now Scotland for $600. Silly-sounding name for the estuary of the River Forth. The question is, what is the Firth of Forth? Scotland for $800, and we come to our first daily double. If you are computing your winnings, now is the time to make your wager. Here's the clue. Scotland's national flag displays the cross of this man, its patron saint. The correct response? Who is St. Andrew? And completing the Scotland category, for $1,000, range of hills that was home to Sir Walter Scott's Bride and Donizetti's Lucia. It's lovely country in the Lammermoors. What are the Lammermoors? The game then moved on to the medicines category. Surprisingly, none of the contestants were able to answer this clue. For $400, Miles Laboratories has been selling this analgesic antacid tablet since 1931. If you missed this, you may need one. What is Alka-Seltzer? Medicines for $600. On March 20th, 1987, this drug became the first approved by the FDA for use in combating the AIDS virus. The correct response? What is AZT? Medicines for $800. In 1988, this prescription acne cream was found to reverse the effects of sun-induced wrinkles. What is Retin-A? And now medicines for $1,000. Completing the category. First used for high blood pressure, this drug, the key ingredient in Rogaine, can stimulate hair growth. The correct response? What is minoxidil? Of course, I've never heard of it. Have you? We then moved back to complete the category of famous educators, although none of the contestants could come up with the correct response. For $1,000, though it caused much indignation in the South, Teddy Roosevelt invited this educator to the White House. Who was Booker T. Washington? Our contestants had been avoiding the ballet category like the plague in this game. It was the only category remaining, however, so they had to give it their best shot. Their best shot was 2 correct responses out of 5. Let's see how well you do. For $1,000, the answer is Balanchine's ballet Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme is based on a 17th century play by this Frenchman. The correct response? Who was Molière? Let's move up and try ballet for $800. Mental illness ended his career after he choreographed his last ballet, Till Eulenspiegel. Who was Václav Nijinsky? Continuing up the category, here's the ballet clue for $600. A battement is this specific movement and can be high or low. A battement is a kick. What is a kick? Our contestants were able to solve the clues for the last 2 entries in the category. Ballet for $400. This dame, born Margaret Hookham, has been called the greatest British ballerina of all time. She was a thrilling partner for Rudolf Nureyev, who is Dame Margot Fonteyn. Finally, completing the double Jeopardy game board, ballet for $200. Tamara Karsavina was the first to dance the role of this Stravinsky bird in 1910. The correct response? What is the Firebird? And that completes our first round of Double Jeopardy. Again, since we have no commercials, we can go right on to Final Jeopardy. If you're competing with friends or have kept a tally of your winnings, you can decide how much you want to wager on the Final Jeopardy clue. The category is fictional characters. Are you ready? Good luck. Here's the clue. Hired as a ship's cook, he led the mutiny aboard the Hispaniola. His wooden leg may have been a literary invention. The correct response is, who is Long John Silver? Well, how are you doing so far? I bet you're ready to play the game a bit faster. This next game aired on our Tournament of Champions in 1988. I'll skip around the game board in the order that the clues were chosen by the contestants. We'll move along a bit more rapidly, but I'll still give you time to think of your response. The categories in the Jeopardy round are word origins, singers, physical science, American literature, bottoms up, and the 1980s. Here we go. The category is word origins. For $500, named for a town in France, this sheer net fabric is used to make bridal veils and tutus. What is tulle? Staying with word origins for $400. An Arabic word for poor gave us this term for a Muslim or Hindu beggar, said to have mystical powers. What is a fakir? Word origins for $300. From the Latin for shield, scutum, it's a shield bearing a coat of arms. What is an escutcheon? Moving to a new category, the 1980s, for $100. Business is no longer hopping in these clubs now that the last one in the United States, in Lansing, Michigan, has closed. What are Playboy clubs? Let's try the category bottoms up. For $100, legend says bats lived in a shed at its rum distillery, and one of them is still on its labels. The correct response? What is Bacardi? Bottoms up for $200. Almond-flavored liqueur, whose name comes from the Italian for bitter, not the Italian for love. It's amaretto. What is amaretto? Back to the 1980s now for $200. Forbes magazine said this singer has overtaken Bill Cosby as the highest-paid entertainer in the world. Who is Michael Jackson? The 1980s for $300. This UN Secretary General negotiated a ceasefire between Iraq and Iran. Who is Javier Pérez de Cuellar? The 1980s for $400. Canada's maple sugar industry is directly endangered by this pollution. What is acid rain? Now to complete the category, and a daily double. The 1980s for $500. A sharp decline in Cabbage Patch doll sales contributed to this toy company's filing Chapter 11. What is Coleco? Not Mattel. Our contestants next finished off the bottoms-up category with 3 straight clues. First, for $300. The recipe for Tia Maria came from this island, and as the slogan says, has been closely guarded for generations. What is Jamaica? Bottoms up for $400. This hazelnut liqueur was named for the mysterious monk who made it 300 years ago. What is Frangelico? And completing the category, bottoms up for $500. Called the world's oldest whiskey distillery, it's in County Antrim, Ireland. What is Bushmills? Now moving to the category American Literature. for $100. An ex-football player who enters the ministry is the subject of this Sinclair Lewis novel. What is Elmer Gantry? Here's our first clue from the category Word Origins. For $200, the answer is, it's a French word meaning Dutch, and in English, it usually refers to a sauce. The correct response? What is Hollandaise? Now let's go back to American literature. For $200, James M. Cain's first novel. Think Letters and Bells for a clue to its title. It's been made into a movie several times. What is The Postman Always Rings Twice? American literature for $300. J.P. Marquand, who won a Pulitzer for the late George Apley, created this Japanese spy detective. Who is Mr. Moto? Word origins again, this time for $100. The adjective ruddy comes from the Old English word ruddig, meaning this color. That was an easy one. What is red? Now back to American literature for $400. Among his many books for boys are the Ragged Dick and Tattered Tom series. He was the king of the dime novels. Who was Horatio Alger? Now American literature for $500. Richard Henry Dana's 1840 classic, based on a voyage he took around Cape Horn. What is 2 Years Before the Mast? Next, our contestants went straight through the category Singers. First, for $100. Country singer Lacey J. Dalton was vice president of the ACM, which is this. What is the Academy of Country Music? Now singers for $200. Some stores refused to stock his Love Sexy album because he was nude on the cover. Who is Prince? Singers for $300. He made his first tour of the U.S. as a solo performer in 1988, and wham, he was a smash. Who is George Michael? Singers for $400. The 1968 song about sitting on the dock of the bay was a posthumous #1 hit for him. Who was Otis Redding? And finally, singers for $500. Once Mrs. Andrew Lloyd Webber, she starred on Broadway in Phantom of the Opera. Who is Sarah Brightman? The contestants in this round saved the category Physical Science for last, but then breezed right through it. Physical Science for $100. An American, Theodore Maiman, built the first of these light amplifying devices in 1960. What is a laser? Physical Science for $200. When burning, sulfur becomes this compound that's used to keep dried fruit from turning brown. What is sulfur dioxide? Physical Science for $300. It's defined as a form of an element with the same atomic number, but different atomic weight. What is an isotope? Physical Science for $400. Named for an English scientist, it's a division of classical physics. What is Newtonian physics? Here's the last clue in the Jeopardy round. Physical Science for $500. This era, the age of mammals, represents less than 1% of geologic time. The correct response is, what is the Cenozoic era? Phew, that was a fast round, wasn't it? Continue to concentrate now, and let's keep it going in Double Jeopardy. The categories in this round are World History, Theater, Lakes and Rivers, Presidential Homes, Musical Europe, and so it goes with and, A-N-D, in quotation marks. And that means that every correct response will contain the word and. Let's begin the Double Jeopardy round. We'll start with presidential houses for $1,000. Hickory Hill, which he later sold to his brother. Who was John F. Kennedy? In the same category, for $200, here's the clue. Rancho del Cielo. Who is Ronald Reagan? Now moving to musical Europe for $200. Some evidence indicates that Beethoven moved 79 times during his 35-year stay in this Central European capital. What is Vienna? Back to presidential homes for $800. The answer is the Elms. E-L-M-S, the Elms. Who was Lyndon Baines Johnson? Presidential homes for $600. The Hermitage. Who was Andrew Jackson? Completing the category presidential homes for $400. La Casa Pacifica. Who is Richard Nixon? Let's go to musical Europe again for $400. Troldhagen is the name of the house this Norwegian built a few miles outside Bergen. The correct response, who was Edvard Grieg? Musical Europe for $600. On a 1969 album cover, the Beatles are shown crossing this road outside of the recording studio. What is Abbey Road? Our contestants then move to the category World History for 4 clues. Here's World History for $200. According to legend, he was a swineherd before he conquered the Incas. Who was Francisco Pizarro? World History for $400. As a result of the Napoleonic Wars, this country lost Norway to Sweden in 1814. What is Denmark? Now World History for $600. Great King of Prussia, whose last words were, "I am tired of ruling over slaves." The correct response? Who was Frederick the Great? We'll also accept Frederick II. World History again for $800. He had a wife named Cleopatra, a daughter named Cleopatra, and a famous son, Alexander the Great. Who was Philip of Macedon? We'll also accept Philip II. Let's go back to musical Europe and complete that category. First, for $800. For 10 years, his widow, Constanza, lived in Copenhagen with her second husband, George Nissen. Who was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart? And musical Europe for $1,000, you'd have to go to this country to visit museums honoring composer Bedřich Smetana. The country is Czechoslovakia. What is Czechoslovakia? Now back to world history, completing that category for $1,000. The Cuban Missile Crisis made this the tensest month of 1962. A frightening time for everyone. What was October? Now we go to lakes and rivers for all 5 clues in that category. First, lakes and rivers for $1,000. Over 300 rivers flow into this largest freshwater lake in Asia, and only one flows out, the Angara. The correct response, what is Lake Baikal? Lakes and rivers for $200. The longest river in Europe. It's noted for its boatmen. What is the Volga? Lakes and rivers for $800. Shreveport, Louisiana and Hanoi, Vietnam are both on rivers that have this colorful name. What is the Red River? Lakes and rivers for $600. The German-speaking Swiss call it the Genfersee. What is Lake Geneva? Completing the category, Lakes and Rivers, for $400. River that runs from Pittsburgh to Cairo, Illinois. What is the Ohio River? Now we'll jump to the category, And So It Goes. The correct responses, remember, all contain the word and. For $1,000, Samuel Pepys often ended his diary entries with these 4 words, referring to the end of the day's affairs. What is And So to Bed? And so it goes for $800. Monty Python's Flying Circus borrowed this catchphrase from BBC announcers. What is, and now for something completely different. In the same category for $600. Title of a 1956 French film and its 1988 American remake, both of them directed by Roger Vadim. What is, And God Created Woman? And so it goes again for $400. On a TV variety show, Jackie Gleason's Exit Line. What is, And Away We Go? Our contestants in this Double Jeopardy round then moved to the theater category and completed it in reverse dollar order. So first we'll have theater for $1,000. The answer is, his 1956 play Look Back in Anger was called a landmark in the history of the theater. The correct playwright? Who is John Osborne? Theater for $800. She adapted the stage version of The Member of the Wedding from her own novel. Who was Carson McCullers? Still with theater now for $600. The Daily Double. Make your wager. Here's the clue. In this play, Audrey II, the second, is described as a cross between a Venus flytrap and an avocado. The correct response, what is Little Shop of Horrors? Now theater for $400. The Fantastics opens with El Gallo singing this song. What is Try to Remember? And our final theater clue for $200. In the female version of this Neil Simon play, the title characters are named Olive and Florence. The male version originally starred Walter Matthau and Art Carney. What is The Odd Couple? Completing this round of Double Jeopardy is this clue from the category And So It Goes. It's worth $200. In the Pledge of Allegiance, these 4 words follow with liberty. I'm sure all of you got it. The correct response, what are and justice for all? Well, are you ready for Final Jeopardy? Our category is geography. So make your wager quickly. And here is the Final Jeopardy answer. Now independent, this island has been ruled by Phoenicians, Romans, Arabs, Normans, French, and British. The correct response, what is Malta? Let's play another challenging game from our 1988 Tournament of Champions. The categories in the Jeopardy round are revolutions, insects, silent movies, herbs and spices, short stories, and long songs. Songs with the word long in the title, L-O-N-G. That's in quotation marks. In this round, we'll go through each category until it's completed. So let's start with long songs. Remember, the titles all contain the word long. For $100, top of the category, Phil Spector overdubbed this last #1 Beatles hit. John and Paul's original version is not for sale. What is the long and winding road? Long songs for $200. First line of the song about an Irish county that's home to the sweetest girl I know. What is It's a Long Way to Tipperary? Love songs for $300. Title line that follows, just kiss me once, then kiss me twice, then kiss me once again. What is It's Been a Long, Long Time? Long songs for 400. In Oliver, Nancy, who's in love with Bill Sikes, sings this song of devotion. What is As Long as He Needs Me? And finally, long songs for $500. A 1979 hit by Supertramp gave you these directions for finding your way to your abode. What is Take the Long Road Home? Let's move now to the category Short Stories for $100. Uncle Wiggily in Connecticut was one of the 9 stories he published after The Catcher in the Rye. Who is J.D. Salinger? Short stories for $200. Hemingway story in which an African mountain comes to represent purity and escape. What is The Snows of Kilimanjaro? Short stories for $300. Faulkner wrote short and long versions of this story about hunting an enormous animal called Old Ben. What is The Bear? Short stories for $400. In this O. Henry story, the kidnappers pay the father $250 to take the kid back. What is The Ransom of Red Chief? And completing the category, short stories for $500. Twain wrote of a stranger who brought a mysterious sack to this town in order to corrupt it, and he succeeded. What is Hadleyburg?